to understand us ourselves better in the future and also build up long-term strategy, because the topic of futurology, Rupal Mishra, the PhD of Historic Sciences, the University of JNU, and expert of Valdai Forum.
Добрый день, everyone. My name is Rupal Mishra, as has been told by Ivan. So I'm a senior research fellow at Center for Russian and Central Asian Studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University. And I'm also a visiting faculty at the Department of International Studies at KG Somaiya University. So this is a very new role that I have assumed. And in my new role, I have started teaching a course on multilateralism, where I talk about BRICS, G20, and G7. So before I get into the core of my presentation, I want to begin on a personal note. So from India, I come from a small temple town called Ayodhya, and it is one of the India's oldest living cities, where mythology, architecture, and memory, they are inseparable from daily life. And yesterday, when I arrived in Suzdal and Vladimir for the first time, I felt a sense of recognition that went beyond geography. So both Ayodhya and Vladimir are civilizational cities. So in both history, the history is not confined to books. I mean, the whole city speaks of the past that it has experienced. So it lives in the stones, it lives in the streets, and I'm sure it is also present in the collective consciousness of the people. So walking through this beautiful city, it made me think about how civilizations, they carry their past into their future. The presence of the past in such a place, it's not a burden. It is rather a compass, I would say, that gives the direction for the future. And that, in a sense, is something that I want to talk about today. The concept of history as a lesson and how it guides our planning for the future. So to think of history as a lesson does not mean thinking of it simply as a story of causes and effects, victories and losses. It is to see it as a repository of experience, a record of how societies have thought, failed, endured, and imagined. The Russian historian Nikolai Danilevsky in 19th century has written about how each civilization develops according to its own cultural historical time. Similarly, in India, Kautilya's Arthashastra suggested that knowledge of the past is essential to the planning of the future. He wrote, "A king who understands the past and present will foresee what is to come." In modern times, we have thinkers like Arnold Toynbee and Oswald Spengler. They have expanded this civilizational perspective, arguing that history is not linear, but it's cyclical in nature. Societies rise and decline based on their capacity for moral and cultural renewal. So when we speak of history as a lesson, we are really speaking about historical consciousness, the ability to interpret time, to find meaning in memory, and to translate that understanding into foresight. In today's fast-moving world, in the hyper-digital world, we often mistake technological advancement as the only marker of progress. Yet, without an understanding of history, such a progress becomes directionless. Future planning without historical consciousness is like navigating with advanced instruments, but without having a map or a compass to guide you. For India, history has never been a record of the past. It has been a philosophy of continuity. The Sanskrit term for history in India is itihas, and it means, thus indeed it happened. So it implies a living dialogue between the past and the present. In our civilizational imagination, the past is not something that is to be discarded. It is something that is to be reinterpreted, re-energized, and reapplied. India's foreign policy reflects the same thinking. When our external affairs ministers, Dr. S. Jaishankar, speaks of Bharat as a civilizational state, he's reminding us that strategic autonomy, resilience, and multipolarity emerge from a deep sense of civilizational dialogue. In planning the future, whether in governance, technology, or diplomacy, India's approach is not to imitate, but to integrate, to draw on the civilizational memory while adapting to the contemporary needs. This is why the concept like Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, the world is one family, and the mission life, lifestyle for environment, they resonate globally. They translate old cultural ethics into new global frameworks. History, in this sense, is not the weight we carry, it is a well from which we derive wisdom. My own research dissertation focuses on the politics of historical narratives in contemporary Russia. It is basically about how states mobilize history to construct identity and legitimacy. Russia's understanding, according to me, I have to be a little cautious when I make any comment here with so many experts around me. So Russia's understanding of its national identity emerges from deeply internalized historical consciousness. What I find fascinating is how both India and Russia, they derive their role in this changing world order from, it is so rooted in history, their new roles. Both the countries see themselves not merely as nation states, but as civilizational entities, rooted in long historical continuities, spiritual depth, and sense of global responsibility. Both also see multipolarity not just as balance of power, but as a balance of civilizations. However, we really do need to step back and be mindful of the danger that lies here. When history becomes selective or politicized, it can create walls instead of bridges. Therefore, understanding history critically, that is, seeing it as a lesson rather than weapon, is essential for constructive future planning. In my academic work, I often describe this as a need to move from memory politics to memory diplomacy. So instead of using history to compete, we can use it to construct, to connect, to find shared lessons, shared moral experiences, and shared futures. Now, this approach is also of special significance to BRICS, a grouping that brings together some of the world's oldest civilizational traditions: Indic, Cynic, Slavic, African, Latin American, Arab Islamic. Each member carries its own interpretation of history, its own experience of colonization, development, and identity. So the 2025 BRICS Culture Ministers Declaration, which I was talking about in the morning, it acknowledges this by calling for enhanced cooperation, dialogue, and understanding as the pathways to a strengthened multilateralism. It does recognize that cultural diversity and historical experience must inform how BRICS plans its future. But like I mentioned, the youth aspect is something that was missing in the charter that I read. So BRICS has the advantage of diversity, but diversity without an understanding of the partners can become estrangement. To plan a shared future, we need to learn from each other's pasts, not just political terms, but in cultural and civilizational terms as well. And this is where I see the potential for a concrete initiative. A BRICS civilizational lab of some sort, or like Vladan mentioned in the morning, some cultural center of some sort, where we can examine how our civilization remembers, how it has been, how we envision progress, so we can create an integrated vision of the future. So the lab may be directed to encourage intellectual, intercultural literacy amongst the youth, to create a dialogue on historical narratives and their modern relevance, study how different civilizations conceptualize time and progress. So the broader goal could be to ensure that future cooperation in BRICS is not just strategic and economic. Rather, it is also civilizationally aware and culturally confident. In this sense, history becomes our teacher, not only in what to avoid, but in what to aspire for. Because history is not just about nostalgia, it is about navigation. Every civilization has its own moral memory, and our task as scholars is to turn that memory into an insight. If we do not learn from our history, we risk repeating those mistakes. But if we learn wisely from history, we can repeat its triumphs, the moments of creativity, of coexistence, and balance. In India, we often say that river Saraswati, which is the symbol of knowledge, disappears underground, but it never ceases to flow. History is like that river. Even when it seems invisible, it continues to nourish the future. And that, in a sense, is the true history lesson that I want to speak about. And that is also the essence of future planning, not to erase history, but to listen to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Rupal, for such an informative and substantial presentation. You merged together the historic memory in India, the way it resonates in Russia, and in the end of the day, how the BRICS countries can come to a better understanding of each other, studying historic pathways that each one of our civilizational countries have accomplished. I would like to give the floor to Paul Aripa.